Hey guys, it's Max. Welcome to our review of the Panasonic Leica 12mm f1.4 lens. This is a brand new lens. This is also the fastest wide lens for the Micro Four Thirds system. So not only out of all the Panasonic lenses, but also all of the aftermarket lenses from Olympus and the likes of the other brands. There are some faster lenses, but they're not very sharp wide open and they don't have autofocusing. So we've been here in downtown Spokane shooting some clips that you guys have already seen. We're going to be doing some more shooting. I love this crane gimbal we've been using it on. Also going to use it on a slider, do some test shots. We're going to share that with you so you guys come along and check out this new lens with us. And at the end, we're going to have a conclusion with our thoughts on it. So first off, I want to say sorry for all the noise that's here. It's windy, there's different generators, ACs running, there's a waterfall over there, fountains over there. So hopefully you guys can hear my voice well enough. Now I want to talk about who this lens is intended for. Now at the price tag of about $1,300 right now, you have to have some extra dough laying around to make this investment worth it. I suspect it's mainly for people who are using Micro Four Thirds for video, that want the extra speed, the higher quality, that can afford this lens, and that are making a living from doing video or possibly photography. Now I'm very glad that Panasonic made this lens. The Micro Four Thirds sensor is about a quarter of the surface area of full frame, or about half of a standard crop sensor, what they call it, APS-C size sensor. So to make up for that, you want faster lenses to get shallower depth of field and to help out with extra light in low light situations for that Micro Four Thirds sensor. Now if you guys notice, this lens is fairly good size. It weighs about 12 ounces. It's about twice the size of the Olympus f2 12mm. So it definitely isn't small, but it doesn't look out of place on the body like this, and especially if you're using this on like a GH4 or the upcoming GH5, it's going to feel right at home, it's going to feel balanced. So size-wise, I think it's a fairly good size. So as far as minimal focusing distance, we're right about 7 inches, and with the f1.4 aperture, you're going to get some really nice blur. You can do some macro photography with this thing as well. So I could imagine using this for ring shots if for some reason you're using a Micro Four Thirds camera for wedding photos, but do a couple shots here. Try to get the absolute minimal. And it's impressive how much, like how sharp the little hairs on this flower is, and then how smooth the background blurs out. And I'll throw it into video mode for you guys and set it to manual focus. So this is what it looks like right here shooting 4K. I'll go out. So really nice, and I'm holding it there. It looks fairly sharp. Another thing I want to note is this lens does not have image stabilization, which is not a big deal for a wide lens, but here I'm using the in-body image stabilization. You could still see a fair amount of shake, but I am super close to here. So the closer you are to an object, the more it's noticeable. So the next thing I want to do is talk about the manual focusing ring, because this is a fly-by-wire electronic focusing system. This gear is not directly attached to the lens, which can make it tricky on some lenses. Now I was going to use a slider for this shot, do something a little bit cooler, but I instantly noticed that this lens gets very close to this plate, and if you actually tighten down the plate, it stops this manual focusing ring from moving. I thought it got close enough, but it still allowed you to move it, but actually it doesn't. And if you keep it loose enough to be able to move the ring, then the camera's too loose on basically your video head or whatever you have it on. So this is an issue with these Manfrotto plates that so many people use, and it's something specific to these smaller bodies, the GX85, possibly the GX8. On the GH4 won't be that big of a deal, but this is something that keeps coming up in my lens reviews when we're using a nice bigger lens on these small mirrorless bodies. So I'm going to go ahead and hand hold this lens here, have it at 1.4 in manual mode. So we have the guardrail, the next little kind of tree there, a little bit further, then second tree, and then that backdrop about there. I'm going to go back, the first little tree there, the second one that's closer, and back again to the guardrail. So very smooth, pretty easy to control. And I'm going to try to go from the back to the guardrail. It's responsive, so this is definitely pretty easy to use. I would say usable for manual focusing. Some of the cheaper Micro Four Thirds lenses don't do so well. So far, the manual focusing ring and system is matching up to what's expected with that price tag. So the next thing I want to test is just the sharpness, stopping down. I'm not comparing this lens to anything, so I'm just going to shoot at 1.4, 2, 2.8, 4, 5, 6, and I'll probably throw in an 8 as well. So I have the Washington Water Power building right here. It's brick. I'm going to take some shots of it. It's impressive how wide this lens is. I'm fairly close to it, so just in photo mode, 4/3, you can fit quite a bit in the frame. So I'm going to take some shots and then we'll compare and get back on that later for you guys. So as far as the autofocusing, this thing seems to be really quick. Just like most of the micro four thirds lenses, the Panasonic uses the depth to defocus technology. Just from the GH4, same thing, the GX85 uses that same autofocusing system. So for stills, it's really good. Now for video, I thought this would be a great lens to use on a gimbal like this. And when you're shooting like this, it's great to have good video autofocusing. You set a center point or face tracking, and then you just go along with it. Now, unfortunately, the video autofocus isn't very good. It's slow, it sometimes hunts, sometimes it just doesn't focus for some reason. Now, it's not a problem of the lens, it's a problem of the autofocusing technology of the actual cameras themselves. So Panasonic really needs to step up for video autofocusing, especially now that we have some really great tools like this Crane gimbal for a low price. So we're going to test out the face detect autofocus. We're going to start out here. We're going to walk backwards together, but he's going to walk a little bit slower, and we'll see if it's going to keep up. So let's go ahead and start. Keep walking. Stop. So it didn't do too bad actually, it did fairly well. It did get out of focus a little bit and then came back in a little bit slow, but seems to be tracking fairly well at f1.4. A little bit of hunting there, even though I'm not anywhere near the minimal focusing distance. So let's see how it will do switching over to the background. So fairly slow, but that's acceptable. So I'm going to go back and see how it will focus onto his face. So definitely slow, hunting a little bit. This is not a problem of the lens, it's a problem of the camera. Panasonic needs to improve their video autofocusing. It's nowhere near the Sony a6300 or the NX1 or Canon's dual pixel technology. So the photo autofocusing system works really fast. It's the same system that's in the GH4, their depth to defocus technology. So for photos, it's going to do a great job. Now as far as the video, same thing with the GH4, it doesn't do so well. Now it can track the face detect or eye detect autofocus, has continuous, but it compared to the a6300 or the a7R Mark II or the NX1 or Canon's dual pixel technology, it doesn't get anywhere near those systems. Sometimes it hunts back and forth, sometimes it's just really slow, sometimes it misses focus. Now this lens would be fantastic on a gimbal like this. You set face detect autofocus or a certain point and be able to do some really sweet shots and have it rack focus, but it just doesn't work so well. Now this is just an area where Panasonic needs to step up their autofocusing system, so it's not the lens's fault. Like I said, it's the camera's fault. So I'm going to do a single autofocusing test right here. I have a focus point at this rail and I am at f1.4, recording right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and go up and we'll see what it does. So it focused, not bad. It's slow, it looks realistic, and let's go back to the rail. I have the focusing, there you go. I thought it wouldn't do it for a little bit. The focus point was perfectly in the right spot, and it just took a little bit longer. So there it actually looked like it defocused more and then back. So it's not horrible, but it's not great. We'll see if Panasonic will step this up in their next camera. So I'm going to do a little bit of focusing like here, and I guess we can go ahead and start talking about the background blur, the bokeh of this. So it's a wide lens, you're not going to get a ton of background blur, but I'm about 4 feet away from my assistant here, and you see the background is quite far away, and it does have a nice blurred out effect. So you can get some background blur, especially if you kind of think about your setup, your shots, and set them up where the background's far away. So for example, if we turn around, say everybody, I'll have you stand next to the bush here, or this tree or whatever, and knock our exposure. So at this point, I'll get closer to him as well, change our focusing point. So here I am much closer to him now than I was before in f1.4, and you see the background is fairly visible. So you have to choose your subject, your background well if you want to have some background blur. So I think the main reason of the f1.4 is more light gathering, not really to have a blurry background. Now that we've had a chance to look over the files, I could definitely say that the 12mm 1.4 lives up to my expectations. This lens is quite sharp wide open at f1.4 and really sharp at f2 and above. Distortion is really low, and I noticed no color fringing in real world shots. At f1.4 there is noticeable vignetting that's greatly reduced at f2 and completely gone by f2.8. The only lens that I had that I can compare the 12mm 1.4 to is my 12-35 2.8 lens, which is known to be quite a sharp lens, so I did some sharpness comparisons. The 12mm 1.4 prime is about as sharp at f2 at the zoom at f2.8, which continues until about f5.6, where they both match up. One interesting thing I noticed is that the 12mm 1.4 prime is actually noticeably wider than 12-35 zoom. So there's no doubt that this is a really nice lens, but who's this lens intended for? Personally, I think this is for people that use their cameras in really low light situations, such as wedding filmmakers. The main benefit of this lens is its really wide aperture at f1.4 that's going to allow you to lower your ISO, and it's going to increase your image quality and your sharpness while decreasing noise at the same time. Being a wedding filmmaker, if I'm shooting with 2.8 zooms, I'm often at 3200 ISO at receptions. Now 3200 ISO is acceptable with a full frame camera, but on these smaller sensor bodies like the GH4 or the GX85 that we used, 3200 really just smears the details and you have a lot more noise that's visible. So if you go down to a lens like this, it's going to allow you to get to about 800 ISO. That's going to give you better detail and less noise and just overall improve your image quality. If you don't shoot in low light situations often, this lens doesn't really make too much sense for you, because a 12-35 2.8 is about the same size, it's less money, and it's more versatile. For landscape photographers, for example, they're going to typically shoot around the f5.6 mark anyways, which both lenses are equally sharp. With that said, if you're in the market for the fastest, widest autofocusing lens for the Micro Four Thirds mount, this is it. And if you have a need for this lens and you have the budget, you're definitely not going to be disappointed. Even though this lens isn't intended for the mass market and it doesn't fit most people's budgets or needs, I'm really happy this lens exists. I'm really happy to have such a fast, wide lens for this system that we haven't had before, and I know there's a lot of people out there that will also agree. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, give this video a like, and if you have any questions, you guys can ask in that comment section below. If you want to see more videos like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you guys want more info or you want to buy one of these lenses, I'm going to have a link in the video description. If you guys buy through that link, it doesn't cost you any extra, but it helps us make more videos like this one. I also want to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters. Thank you guys very much for helping make videos like these possible, and I will see you guys in the next video.